What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Make an Impact podcast with real stories, real people, and real impact. My name is Stephen Turnbull. I'm an entrepreneur, husband, and father on a mission to empower individuals to share their stories so they can make an impact on you. We've got my friend Dan Williams in the house today with Williams Fence Excavation, Blueberry Farm Resort, and the Daniel Barden Mud Fest. We talked about all of those different things, but more importantly, we talked about Dan Williams himself, how he got to where he was, how he runs these 3 different businesses, how he runs that great event. And I'm just super excited for you to learn more about Dan Williams and enjoy this great conversation. Without any further ado, let's get on to Dan Williams. All right. We're back. Mr. Dan Williams, how are you today, sir?
Stephen, best day of my life.
Every day is.
Yesterday's gone and tomorrow hasn't started yet.
Tell me about that. Best day of your life. You say that every day.
Yeah, I do. I honestly have been through so much. Quit drinking about 6.5 years ago. And I somebody said something, it was like an AA thing. But for me, it was like, you know what? Lots of trials and tribulations, rocky road. Let's just focus on today, right? I don't have a time machine. I can't fly backwards or go ahead. So it's been something I've really leaned into.
I was talking to someone earlier, and they were having just a bad day, and we talked about there's not bad days, there's bad moments. And he hit me with the, hey, every morning I'm just going to tell myself when I wake up, I'm not homeless and I'm not in jail.
That's
I'm like,
right.
I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. That'll get me going. Dan Williams, I'm pumped for this. This is going to be a great conversation. I was thinking on the ride here of like, where do we want to take this? And one of the first things that popped in is how we got to know each other, which I think is really cool. And you go through everybody's different career, everybody's relationships, and think back of the connections you've made and the relationships and the people who have introduced you. So you and I were members of the BNI chapter that was here in Utica. That's how we originally connected. You were there for a while, and that's how we connected with Williams Fence and what you were doing, then learned about the new venture that you're doing, and all around just an amazing guy. So I'm excited for this conversation.
Oh, man.
I was talking before we recorded. Before we get into all the crazy things that you're doing, I want to just tell us about Dan Williams. For people that are watching this right now, have no idea who you are. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so for me, I'm like super lucky to be here. And I have to remind myself, my grandfather was on a sub, met my grandmother in Australia during World War II, and said, I'll be back after the war to marry you. So there's like, holy shit, you know, I'm lucky right there, right? Thank God the sub broke down, and my grandma was right there. And then my dad got drafted for Nam and met my mom the day before he shipped to Vietnam, and said, I'll be back to marry you, and did.
No kidding.
So I feel like, wow, it's just amazing like how tenuous it was just to even be here today with you. So my parents got married in California, moved back to Deansboro, and my dad had written a letter to my grandfather and said, if I get out of this hellhole alive, I want to be a farmer. So my grandfather found this little farm of Sunnybrook Orchard, formed 100 years ago this year. And they bought this dump of a farm and started growing. There were apples, so they had an apple orchard. And I was born in 1973 on the farm. And
no kidding.
Yeah, it was amazing. For my first, I can remember fondly like running through the apple orchard at 6 with my little pellet gun and BB gun and just being raised essentially by like the farm help. And
sure,
you know, my parents were like, yeah, whatever, you know. That's kind of the way our generation was raised, or
right,
you know.
And so that's where you raised your family.
Yeah. So then, in '88, my dad had built this farm up. It was like milking 125 head of cattle. Had really gone from like literally nothing. He was like a forward-thinking farmer. Had a lot of the technology that farmers didn't have. We had a dairy of distinction in Oneida County, one of the best kept farms. And then in '88, a guy came in and said, hey, would you sell the farm? And my dad, he just has always had that like entrepreneurial spirit. He was like, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, there we were, boom, farm's gone. My grandfather lived on the farm across the street. So my grandfather retired. My dad bought the farm from him. And at 14, I moved in. And what do we do with the farm? We're not dairy. So we put a fence around it. And we had hired this guy, Troy's Fencing. And Troy got done with the job, and he was like, you want to buy my business? And my dad's like, what do you want? And he goes, $1,750. So we bought 100 people on a customer list. It was a handful of tools, and we just got going.
Come on, that is so cool.
Like 93.
So Dad sells the farm, move across the street to Grandpa's farm,
Yep.
put up this fence, guy sells you that fence business.
Yeah.
And that's how Williams Fence was born.
That's right. March of 93. And it was just like we had I told our team this last week, we do a monthly safety stand down, and I'm really, really about like, let's bring the team back to Deansboro. We're working Pennsylvania, Maine, New York, like we're working a wide footprint, but once a month we just come back together. And I was like, guys, we honestly like started with an F-150 pickup truck. We used to put it in low 4-wheel drive to climb the hills, and we were doing whatever. And to go from those humble beginnings to running a $20 million business is crazy.
So talk to me. So when Dad bought the business for $1,750, you were 14.
No, flash forward on that. I was actually a senior in high school.
Okay.
He did once we sold the farm, he took a job doing this. He was not built to work for people, but he did learn a lot of construction practices in that. He worked for a company called Agway Buildings. So Agway is actually Suburban Propane now. They literally ran that business into the ground. They had like 11 different divisions, and he was part of the building division. And so he did that for a while and then just realized, I don't want to do this. Somewhere along the lines of, I think, 91, we put the fence up. So once we put that up and then he bought the business, I was a senior. I worked for him that season, and then I had a running scholarship. I went to college I went for geology and environmental science, and but I was really a distance runner, and I wanted to, I was like thinking Olympics and all this. And then you go to college and get absolutely beat down.
Humbled a little bit?
Yeah, I was telling, Hamlin College football team was at my house. They do their preseason party at my house because I had a zip line, rope swing, and I freaking love it. I love being around the young kids.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, how's it going? And they're like, oh, man, we're doing the 2-a-days and we're getting beat up. And my coach in college was an ex-Navy SEAL, really, really good runner, ran against some of the best. But he was also a Navy SEAL who did a couple tours in Nam. And our first workout, we ran a lot, 10 miles, but we did 700 push-ups. And I just remember going to the dining hall that night and grabbing the tray and just barely being able to eat.
Yeah.
And questioning my sanity. And,
sure.
Yeah. But, those are the moments.
So went to school, and then when you came back, was it right into the business? Was Dad running the business himself at that time?
Yeah, so he was running it. I worked for him every summer, and then I go back to college. When I actually transferred from that college, I got hurt. And then when I was like, all right, I want to do something different. They didn't offer engineering. So I actually switched to SUNY IT. And in the process, met my wife, bought a house right in Waterville, finished at SUNY IT. And then I took a job at Griffiths Air Force Base for all of 2 weeks. And I was working for a company where you're doing a bunch of testing, environmental testing, drilling. And I was like, oh no, I just can't do this. This is not me. And I put in my notice. I called my dad. I was like, I'm coming back. And it was actually that same week my mom passed away. So I moved into my new house on a Wednesday. She had an aneurysm, died that Saturday. And I was there, which actually it was the best time for me to come back because, my dad was shattered, 30 years in marriage, and, there was no notice.
Right.
Aneurysm hits like a train wreck. It's just boom.
Right.
So I was able to just dive right in. And my grandfather was our salesman. So it was like my grandfather would sell it. I was installing it. Dad's never listened to this. I have no idea what he was up to for the next 6 years. But finally, one day he came in, he was like, I'm done. I was like, okay. He was helpful, and he did. One thing I could say about my father that I think he never did any business training. He barely graduated from Paul Smith's. He actually got his degree when he was 40. he finished up because he went to Nam. Like he quit college, got drafted because if you're not in college, you were
Right.
Yeah, he literally hated college so much that he was fine with getting shot at every day for
Crazy.
18 months or whatever. So, yeah, it was like, but my dad learned how to delegate, and like how he would tell me, like, make a mistake, okay? Make them, learn from them. If you make it twice, I'm going to start to question your intelligence. But he said it differently, which I don't want to.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not sure I want to bring it to the pod.
PG-13 show.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so he was there. He really gave me that space to like grow and try, and I of course made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I have him to thank, and I just was on the phone with him on the way here. I was like, Dad, I just had the most amazing meeting yesterday with a multi-billion-dollar company, and they want to partner with us on this thing I'm doing. And you know, he's like, that's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So take me back to when it was just you starting the fence company, because there's a laundry list here of what I want to get into of the side projects, we'll call them, and that are turning into big projects, all these things and these crazy ideas that Dan Williams has. I want to go back to when he said, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, this is yours. And you talked about, we started with an F-150. We started putting it in four-wheel drive, getting up those hills to get to those jobs. Now we're in Maine, Pennsylvania. That's what this show's all about. Like the impact that you've made on those clients statewide, but not more importantly, the team. And I know how important the team is to you and all of that just from our relationship of knowing you. And I want to get into that. But take us back to when you were taking over and what that was like for you and how that's worked into the leader that you are today and the entrepreneur you are today.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was, I was like shocked, actually. I was like, oh my gosh, this was 05. So I was like, okay. My grandfather had a stroke, and so he was no longer selling. So it fell all 100% on me. Like,
and at that time, it was still just kind of local, like in this area.
Yeah, we were within 90 miles. But in 2000, I had the opportunity to work for this billionaire, Bill Ziff, down in Putnam County. And that job really catapulted us with, between that and had be early adopter of having a website. I know it seems crazy, but like nobody had a website back then, and I had one. So we were able to like really go after, you know, I got somebody with 16 billion that calls, like we go down there and I sell them on us, and we do the job. And then to be able to call on that and say, hey, we did this project, you know, this guy's spending 70 mil a year on his property, you know, and that really catapulted us.
Yeah.
It was 7 days a week. The one thing that I you know, we can't fly backwards. We talked about this, really, best day of my life. The thing I learned is like there wasn't really a lot of balance. I used to throw my wife and the two kids in the minivan, and we would run around and sell on Sunday. I had everything lined up, and I'd go around and sell. And then she worked our office. So we were like a two-person team. We had this woman, Deb, who was unfreaking real. She was like a super linchpin. She could do everything. So between her and my wife, they pretty much ran the office. But I would run around, do all the estimations, and then it was like the old days, write them out, and then put them in the envelope, mail them out. And so, yeah, it was a lot. It was all-consuming. But it was amazing, really.
I want to touch on something you said about balance. I was, excuse me, I was talking to a friend of mine who has an agency in Long Island, and we're on like very similar paths. He's just a year older than me in his startup agency and all that. And he posted something along balance of like, when you hear work-life balance, what do people think? Like, oh, you work from these hours and you have family and life in these hours and you do that day in and day out. But like, he's like, the way I look at it is, the balance is like, I'm going to sacrifice what I have to sacrifice. Maybe Tuesday night, I'm going to work until at the office till 1 o'clock in the morning because I have to do that. But I'll be able to wake up and have breakfast with my kids the next day. And like, there's the balance there. You talk about throwing the kids and the wife in the minivan to go out on Sunday and make these sales, to be able to grow the business, to be able to chase the dream, to grow it to what it is today. Talk to us about your view on that balance and how it's paid off today.
Yeah, my dad that was another thing he said to me. He's like, you're going to get tired, and so go really hard. so I went with that, but the more I've learned and the more I've gotten, I've educated myself through readings and studying other people in businesses. If you can create systems and you can identify people that really want to do that thing, like can really drive on that, then you can start to create leverage where I was trying to push it along. I remember talking to my former financial advisor. And I was like, I just get up an hour earlier and I do something, right? I work. But if I'm doing a $20 job, like, is that really, it's almost like I'm devaluing my time. And that's something I've had to learn. Like, what we did yesterday could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars in potential business in the future. But if I were to go out and be like, hey, I'm going to get in the excavator and I'm going to save $70 an hour because that's what we pay the guy plus another 30 for the all the taxes and all that stuff. Is that fair to the business? Am I doing the best thing? So it's evolved over time, but back then that's exactly what had to happen. At that time, it was I had to dig in and get going because literally he came in on a Wednesday, threw his briefcase down his measuring wheel. He had taken over from my grandfather, and we used to work for a lot of horse people. Women pretty much drive the business, and we had this woman that was. The more money you have, the more, I want to say, crazy your ideas can be. And that's one thing I've learned. Like, when you work for somebody with a lot of money, they can get all Howard Hughes on you. And, you can take it two ways. My dad was super practical and, like, this woman's nuts. I don't want to do this anymore. So it forced me to, like, get that out of balance, right? Okay, I'm sorry, honey, we got to go look at some jobs today. Hey, you want to go for a drive? That's what I usually would say. Right. And I had it lined up. But it definitely, it was what had to happen then. Right.
You said two things there. One of, well, you just ended with it. It had to happen then. Like that's what I had to do to get to that point. And the second thing you said after that was finding the right people and putting them in the right seats. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I just hired an EOS integrator. EOS is Entrepreneur's Operating System. I highly suggest it for any business, and certainly in the beginning would be better than later.
Sure.
So Jody came in. She was the project integrator for a billionaire who bought a farm in Canastota, and right before COVID. She called, hey, we want 12 miles of fence. I was like, 12 miles of fence? Who's doing 12 miles of fence, right? Not a lot of people. Yeah. So I call, and she's like, yeah, I've been following you for a long time, from afar. I'm in alpaca land. And so I meet her, and this woman, this billionaire, she flies in, and she's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do all these pastures, and I want to do like 6 pole barns, and I want to do all this stuff. I was like, oh, we can do all that. We've done this for other clients, kind of GC the job. I'm like the farm expert. Yeah. I can create your laneways and holding pens and all this stuff. And we literally drew it out on a pizza box. She had a sheet of plywood in the farm. So it was like, we drew it out. She's like, that's awesome. We got going, and what I realized with this woman, she like integrated, because billionaires can be crazy. There's like no, they just want it. They want it right away.
And they want it done.
Yeah. What was amazing about it was like she would fly in, she'd be like, oh my God, you guys just get shit done. That's great. And then she had, we called it the $100,000 wave. She'd be like, oh, I want this. And I'd be like,
$100,000 wave. I love that.
Yeah. That. She just had can you do this? It was like 100,000. So
I'm gonna try that when I get home.
I know. I'm like, it was awesome. So we finished the project up. I think that first it would have been end of 2020. So Jody, her name just popped up on. I have a girl that does events and stuff for MKJ and for Blueberry. She does our bookings and stuff. I saw her Apple Watch. I was like, Jody Hatch. And just something in my mind, I was like, I haven't talked to her in 3 years now. I just shot her a text. I was like, hey, we should catch up sometime. And she, bang, calls me. Hour and a half later, I'm like, she's like, I've been following you, and you're a visionary, right? And I was like, yeah, I can see things, but where I'm at, I feel like having somebody to actually implement and get it done, that's where I'm struggling, I said right now. Like, I really feel like I could do a lot more if I could share the vision and have somebody. She goes, well, turns out I'm an integrator, and I'm the person that gets shit done, and I'm the person that can ruffle feathers, that can be like, yeah. So we talked in January, and she was done with working for alpaca folks. Jody, if you're listening, you know this is true. They're different too. It's kind of like herding cats. Like, she was trying to help alpaca owners along in her business, and she was. It's just, do they really want to? People talk about change and getting better, but do they?
Do they do it? Right.
Do they actually do the work?
Right.
So she came in January. She observed the Williams business for 3 months, because that's part of EOS. It's like, just observe. So she sat in the office. She had her own spot, and she was taking on Blueberry, like all of it.
Yeah.
And then after like 90 days, her and I went to an EOS conference, and it was like, came back, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And it just has made such a difference. We do level 10 meetings across the business. She knows what my vision is of what I need to do, because I've spent extensive time actually using ChatGPT. I spend $200 a month. Invest in chat, and I've put everything in there, and I keep refining it down. And then I create these documents, and those documents, I have a executive assistant in the Philippines who's like my linchpin, Leggy. I can just hit send on Microsoft Teams and send it to her and say, please file, and like, send this to Jody, and then she can get it. And it's like, it's taken what I would be like grunting and pointing and hey, I'm trying to do this, to like, boom. Not only like, here's what I see, but here's how to actually do it. And that's been just a game changer.
I want to stop you. You just said something very interesting that we need to hit.
Okay.
You caught yourself on something. Not spend, invest.
Yeah.
And you're talking EOS, executive assistant. These are expenditures, investments, but they're not cheap expenditures, investments. You're hiring a whole position as an executive assistant. You're investing in EOS to make yourself better. Talk to me about kind of the journey as being an entrepreneur with these businesses, which we need to dive into the specifics for listeners so they have some folks are understanding what we're talking about. But the journey from taking the business over to kind of getting Dan out of the way, to bring somebody in to sit in the office for 3 months and just observe.
Yeah.
Because I know with, at least with the handful of entrepreneurs we've talked to on the show so far, that's the hardest part of like, no, you need to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And bring in a third party to observe and say, oh, no, this is what's going wrong. You need to be better in this. You need to do this. This is why you need to do this. That's how you grow. That's how you scale.
Yeah.
And by those ingredients is how you've been able to grow and scale what you're doing.
Right.
Talk to us about that. Talk to us specifically. I love that you just caught yourself there.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like, okay, I bought a car. I bought a motorcycle. I spent money. But the way I look at it is like, I would take and pay for the executive assistant and keep my pay lower, because then immediately calendar and email are off my plate. Like, you're like, hey, I want to meet. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Leggy set this up. And like, the people I've been studying, like a Dan Martell.
Yep.
He's like,
Buy Back Your Time. Great book.
Yeah, exactly. I read that book 7 times. Took notes and started, and that's where I started with Leggy. And at first I sucked at it, but it actually was training me to be a better delegator. And I think so many times, like, I listened to these guys, the My First Million, will be like, well, I tried it didn't work. Okay. You once? You just tried it once?
Yeah.
Like, was that like riding a bike? Like
Well, and this goes back to what we talked about earlier about mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in business.
That's
and
right.
You need to. You
Yeah.
need to learn from them. You know, I brought on a new service person in our office, and that was one of the first things I said is like, don't think you're coming here and not make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes, and that's how we learn.
Yeah.
And that's how you adapt. And the people that stay stagnant in their businesses, in their life, whatever we want to put it up against, are the ones that make the mistakes and think, oh, that's just the way it is. Make the mistake of the executive assistant didn't work. Not what can I do to make this experience better? How can I be different to make I in my world with the insurance, it's a big virtual assistant thing is a big buzz right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting virtual help from Philippines, Colombia, India, whatever it is, and there's so many. I would say 80% of the people that they call them VAs, right?
Yeah.
80% of the people that try the VAs say, oh, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, guess who's 90% of the time it's your fault that it didn't work. It's not the VA's fault.
Right.
It's you didn't have what you talked about, the processes, the procedures, or the time to say, let me see how I can figure this out. Not I tried it for a month and it didn't work.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I said, the investments in the EOS system.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, it's like, okay, what do you really have to sell in a business? There's this, people have this idea, I have this business, and I'm like, oh, great. So how long could you not be there and it would keep going? Week. You know, I know people with 100, they got 100 employees, and they're like, I have to work 100 hours to go away for a week, and I come home to a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't have a business. You have an incredibly painful job. It's worse.
Oh, God. That's going to be a great clip, Mike. That's going to be a great, you're so on it. You're so on it.
What I'm building, and I talk with Chris Milton about this. You know, luckily for me, I got balls big enough to say, hey, Chris, let's go golfing. My son's pretty good at it. And we do. And I'm like, you have 1,752 people working for you across 6 businesses. How do you get to that point? He's like, good people, you know, trust but verify, but really good people and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Chris is just driving. I honestly, God, if you're listening, I know you're not, but he just is such a regular dude. It was just like, wow. And that's me. I can, I'm so happy just being in my van. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could live in a van down by the river
Mm-hmm.
and invest everything back into the business. Because what I'm building will, my business partner, Corey, and I are building something that is truly going to outlive us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the vision that we have, that, you know, someday they'll be like, yeah, these guys got it going. And when I talk to my team, I'm like, we have fathers and sons, and we're literally just a few years away from bringing in the grandkids and having 3 generations.
You just teed me up after bringing up golf there. There's a little pun there. You just teed me up perfectly. Talk to me about the people in your organizations, because I know how important that is for you. And we've been talking about the last few minutes of like, how do you achieve these things? How does Dan Williams put on the mud run, make sure Williams Fence is rocking and rolling in all these different states, make sure Blueberry's all set to go, which is everything we need to get into the specifics. But people, and putting the right people in the right seats.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your experiences and trials and tribulations through that process.
Yeah, so you're gonna try people, and then it's not gonna work. One of the things that I've learned is like, we've been doing a lot of the personality type stuff. We're working with Denali now out of Little Falls, so really getting to understand like the essence of who this person is, clearly defining the role, and then saying, hey, this is what we have to do, right? And if you can align those two things, then that's really where it's gonna. You're going to make magic, right? We've made a million different mistakes along that way, but lately I feel like we definitely have that part dialed in. So like for Williams, our fence and excavation business, we're in a better period of time right now. We know with COVID, there was a great resignation, and it was like, you know, you're just trying to bring people in. We got, I would say, away from our core values and really what I felt like should be the standard. We firmly have that back now. It took some time, and I learned a valuable lesson there. Like, you can grow too fast, right? And then you got to obligate yourself to do the work. And then if the help isn't there, maybe you're bringing your standard down. That doesn't happen going forward. Like I'm about that all the time. Our core values, we are innovative. And to me, like, I don't want to hear about you're complaining about this, that, or the other thing. What are you doing? Okay, everyone's got permission to like take the struggle out of their day. So if it's in your pickup truck, get your tools organized a certain way. If it's communication between the field and the office, figure it out. We have apps. We have all these things. Permission to raise your hand, and this is a Dan Martell. I steal it. Hey, I got a problem. These are the 3 solutions, and here's my favorite one. And I've just been early and often saying that's innovation, okay? We all own that. That's not, I'm going to drive it. I'm going to say it until you guys want to punch me in the face. I'm going to keep saying it. Take the struggle out. Why are we throwing it on the ground, picking it up, right? Safety to me is so stupid right now in commercial. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to talk safety. I'm like, put your hard hat on, put your glasses on. But when you do the process, think about how you could do it most effectively. Like, because if you can do it that way, it's going to be safe, right? Our second core value is commitment. And again, I must commitment to the customer. Whatever it is we're doing, it's got to be done. And if you can't be committed to the customer, then you're not committed to us as a team. All right. So when we talk about that, it's like, if you're not committed, man, I don't know. The last is family. And I've had a lot of people have been like, you can't do the family thing because then people start take advantage of you. I've got family that's worked for me. I fired my oldest son. I didn't fire him. One of our guys did, but I told him, I said, if he's late again, he's getting fired. It was.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, it was that's when I threw the gauntlet down. It was sometime in 2023, and it was like, no, hell no.
But Dan, hang on.
This is family, but this is a privilege, not a right.
But he's the son of the boss.
Right. And that's the worst. That's how you erode those core values. I kicked him out of the house the same week. He had a bad week.
Yeah, just do it all at once. You're going to throw the hammer
Well, I
down.
was like, listen, you're out of the house, and if you're late to work, you're going to get fired. So in the same week, he gets, he's out of the house. He gets himself fired. I think he wrecked his car too. I don't think I know. So he had a bad week. But my dad said to me on the way here, he goes, I'm going to get emotional, but this kid didn't talk to me for months. And I was like, last year I said to him, meet me in the blueberry patch. And I said, let's just listen to this book, Atomic Habits. And I said, we're just going to listen. We're going to pick blueberries. And we did 2 sessions like that. And then all of a sudden I just started to see it. He got a job over at the Hamilton Inn waiting tables. And boom, he's just flourishing. The kid just went through a sales job in South Carolina, literally 90 hours a week. They just grind these kids up. He was top 10 rookie and did a whole summer down there. He did like 24 weeks. I mean, they just absolutely just drive these kids hard.
There's so much to pull from that story that you just said with your son. And on the Make an Impact podcast, man, what a great way to make an impact on his life at a young age. And people would say, oh, you fired your son?
Yeah.
You kicked him out?
Yeah.
And we talked earlier about mistakes and what you learn from them. Well, showing up late that one last time was a mistake he made.
That's right.
But damn, did he learn a lesson.
Yeah.
And now you're talking of all these successes that he's had that's leading up to becoming the young man he is. Kudos to you. That's incredible. That is incredible. All right. So we got to wrap it up soon here. I knew we'd have this problem, Dan. We tried to say we're going to be half hour, but I love that we just kind of went right into the story of Dan and the business owner and the implementer and all those things, the visionary. Talk to us about, I want to hit the mud run. I want to hit Williams Fence. We talked a little bit about Williams Fence in the beginning. So just touch on that, about like what you guys do, your specialty, where you're out of, just quick on that. And then I want to hit about the mud run and blueberry.
Okay, so Williams Fence, this is our 33rd year. We've evolved into what I call, we're really an off-road logistics company. We're specific to solar right now. We do excavation, or what they call civil work, and we do fence, and we move shit. Okay, and we do it effectively. So we're that's what we're doing on the Williams side. I bought this blueberry property 3 years ago now, and it was built by Ginny and Bob Paluski. It's like out of a picture book. I had no part in it other than the trails and some of the outside stuff. But what we're doing with this blueberry house, which is 5-bedroom, 5 private bath, it's got the great room, and then the schoolhouse with like a bungalow right across the driveway, and then the game room, rumpus room area, is corporate retreats and people that want to come and get better. So what we're working on right now is corporate retreats and then wellness type retreats on the weekends, women's wellness. I'm actually really leaning into the dude thing, and I'm starting a book club because I feel like the ladies got their book club, but I'm like, I think there's a need for guys to
For sure.
to
I
be able
love
to
that.
congregate and,
Yeah.
and just talk about like personal development, business, those sorts of things, making ourselves better physically, mentally, spiritually. So that's on the blueberry side. And then Daniel Barden Mud Fest, this was our 11th season this year.
Was it 11?
Yeah. Wow. Would have been 13, COVID,
Yeah.
But honestly, I had a great COVID, and I feel like COVID was the best came out of it for me. So I could talk about that. But so my niece was in the Sandy Hook tragedy where the 21st graders were killed and the six administrators back in 2012 in December. My niece rode the bus that day with Daniel Barden, her next door neighbors, and she happened to be in a room 4 rooms down from where those 20 kids were killed. She heard everything. And I got the text. At that time, I was so about me, my business, like just, like we talked about, like I'm pretty all in, right, when I'm on something. But to get a text that says there's been a shooting at Maggie's school, and I'm like, oh my God, I have all this stuff going on right now. Like I can't even stop. I call her. I'm like, is she okay? Yeah, she's okay, but Daniel's missing. Daniel Barden held the door for me at a birthday party, and I could just picture this kid, moppy little hair, and like what 7-year-old holds the door. They usually just bust through it and go. So by the end of the day, we found out that he was one of the 20, and it was just so devastating, And I think of like the country itself was just like most people, other than Alex Jones, were like, oh my God, this is insane. The part for me that like changed my life forever was going to his funeral, and that last speaker saying, you know what, if you can say something to change the discussion, say something. And if you can do something to get this country moving in a different direction, then do something. And I had just had this epiphany on my 39th birthday. My 10-year-old beat me in a 5K, and I had Bushmills whiskey stock here, and I was like 200-some pounds. I just run a Tough Mudder, but I was really not taking care of myself. And we walked out of the church, and I said to my wife, we're going to put a mud run on for these folks. I had like a clear vision of the course. I called Jack Bushman at MKJ, and I was like, Jack, can we put a mud run on the farm? And Jack, if anyone knows Jack, he's like, sure. I called my buddy at Saranac. I was like, hey, we're going to need a bunch of beer. He was like, hell yeah. And then that first year we did 26 of these hollow trees to represent each victim. And he's like, yeah, I'll get started. And we got all these logs, brought them all in. That first year we had 1,000 runners. It literally changed my life, and for so much the good. Because that to see the Bardens come, like I didn't care about raising money or any of that. I just wanted them to get back on their feet. Like I'd seen how absolutely broken they were, and my kids are the same age. Same age, and you're going, I just want to see you guys get back on your feet again. And that's what ended up happening. Mark called me that fall, and he was like, Dan, your mud run just gave us hope when we didn't really have any, and can we do it again? And I was like, Mark,
Say less.
I'm already planning on it. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
So we added a 5 mile. Now we have a half-mile kids run, a 5K kids run, and or 5K adult run with 25 obstacles, and then a 5 mile run with 35 obstacles. And my business partner, Corey, and Dad said this. He goes, "You're a moron. I can't believe you're like investing all this money in the property. You're digging ponds and like making trails and stuff, building all this stuff, and you don't even own the farm." But I think I was like projecting to own the farm at some point, and we ended up closing on the farm this past summer.
That's
so
awesome.
now we own that.
That's awesome. If you talk about Mike, how many people we've had on, that's a make an impact story right there. That's so incredible. Dan, we got to wrap this up. I don't want to, but we have to. Thank you for just being you.
Oh man,
thank you for being you. This is we got to have part 2. We'll I think we should have you back early on before the Mud Fest next year so we can just talk about that and get that out there. But I was a little nervous in the beginning when I was thinking about this in my head, and I'll tell you why. Because I was like, man, this guy does so much. How are we going to boil this down? You know, from the listener, you want to get as much out as you can in a short time, you know, and you got the fencing, you got Blueberry, you got the Mud Fest. And I'm like, I am just so thrilled how the conversation went, because we talk about all these things that you do in the end and the impact that you've made on your employees, whether it be in the farm or the fencing business, rather, Blueberry, the impact you've made on these families that went through all those. But all of that can happen because of what we talked about in the first place and all those things you've learned and those lessons. And I'll be listening to this one multiple times because there's some incredible lessons here. I just really appreciate you taking the time today.
Oh, Stephen, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Everybody, that's Dan Williams. You learned all about him. You're going to have to hit reply and listen to that one. Until next time, go out there, lead with purpose, and make an impact in someone's life today, even if that's your own. My name's Stephen Turnbull. We'll see you next week. Take care.